Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods for round 2 of the 2023 season. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Jules as we talk through the convincing win over the Hawks at our first home game of the season. And, of course, celebrate the iconic career of the late Barry Round and what he meant to the Swans. So, fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
Sydney Swans!
Okay, Swans fans, we kick off round 2 review by welcoming back to the podcast Jules. Welcome back, Jules.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be back in this brand new season and 2 rounds in, looking the goods.
Yeah, beautiful. We are. So let me get straight into the team details, or game details rather. So last Sunday day game, our Sydney Swans defeated the Hawthorn Hawks by 81 points with a final score of 17-16, 118 to 4-13, 37. So Jules, right off the bat, what were your first impressions of the game?
Well, it was pretty fun to watch as a Swans fan. And look, I think all of us, having pretty long memories, we love beating the Hawks, even if this team is completely unrecognisable from the outfit that we had so much rivalry with over the years. It brings us a huge amount of joy.
Absolutely. And even seeing Sam Mitchell being upset is always fun for every Swans fan. So that's useful.
Seeing the look on his face in the coach's box with 13 unanswered goals on the trot, it was hard not to smile. It really was.
It makes me happy. Like, he's one of those players I totally respect, and frankly, I think he's going to be a pretty good coach in his time. He's just that kind of guy. But for now, let's enjoy every bit of it. So he caused us enough distress during his bloody well career. So
100%, yeah. And it was actually our biggest ever victory over Hawthorn as the Sydney Swans as well. So
wow, brilliant.
Pretty nice takeaway. Yeah,
very nice takeaway. I guess while we kick off it, we definitely turned off the notch in that last quarter. We could have gone for the 100. I started the 100 chant, but no one really caught on in the stands. But I guess we just didn't bother that last quarter. We were in second gear there.
Yeah, that old sort of pressure gauge, I think it actually started to drop off after half time, in all fairness. Even our third quarter, I think we started to start thinking about the after party once party was taken off the ground. Look, certainly that fourth term, I mean, it was the last 2 goals that the Hawks kicked, wasn't it? 2 out of their 4 for the whole game were in the last sort of few minutes. So you could certainly tell that things had kind of, the lights had sort of started to switch off, I think.
Yeah, they had the pressure gauge machine in the back of our AFL headquarters, and I'm pretty sure at halftime, in order to save energy, they just went in the back and turned the machine off. They're like, bugger it, guys, just turn it off, guys. There's no point at the moment.
Don't bother about the last 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, cost cutting is hardcore at the AFL headquarters, that's for sure. But look, hey, the conversation's always about Buddy, right? Even if Buddy's not on the ground, we talk about Buddy. So Buddy wasn't on the ground. The conversation then headed towards who's going to be his replacement. The party and your man Jumbo Jet Logan were brilliant. What can we say?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. The call was asked, what are the Swans going to do without Buddy? And it was resoundingly answered. 5 goals for the Jumbo and 4 for Party. I mean, come on. What a day out.
They scored 57 between them and 37 to the Hawks' entire team. So it wasn't too easy of a game. Comprehensive game. And let's not say that their backline is terrible. They got Sicily, they got Jaith. They've got a couple of good, decent players out there. I was going to jump into good, but they've got a couple of decent players there. Definitely Sicily being elite. And they weren't a factor in the game. It seemed like we just had the number.
We did. Well, I mean, both of those 2 gentlemen actually got career best. Shall we call them bags of goals? I think we probably can. Anything 4 plus probably class as a bag. So to have 2 of our really young up and coming key forwards do that, on a day where where Lance isn't playing, it was something special to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is a bit nervous going into a game where Buddy's not there, kind of. Like, we know that Logan plays better when he's not on the ground. We know that. That's fine. But the Hawks are such a bogey team, kind of stressed me out. But to see him get like Amadi get on the board within seconds, that was brilliant to see. Well, let's just get straight into the good, the bad, and the stats. What do you have? Do you want to kind of lay on to the crowd here?
Yeah, well, it was a demolition job, really. Yeah. So a lot of things, worked well. We basically schooled the Hawks all over the ground. Horse in the post match press conference called it a balanced game, which I think is a term that I'd probably agree with. We were really strong across the park in all the key areas. Our back stood tall, kept the Hawks to an abysmal total. Great launch off half back. The midfield was absolutely humming, and we kicked 17 goals. Including missing a few gettable ones as well. So there were probably, a few more goals, that went missing. So a lot of things, worked out well for us.
Yeah, tidy. I agree with that. That's probably the second week that we've had what would you say, like a balanced game if we're going to use Horse's phrasing. It was every position kind of did their bit offensively and defensively. It just seemed like a really tidy
structure
output.
was really sound. Everybody seemed to know their role, knew where their teammates were, and stuck to the script, I guess, from a coaching perspective. So I'm sure they'll be really happy with how that blueprint looks going forward.
Beauty. I think one thing that I love seeing was Ollie Florent just barely jogging across that center square with the ball, just with 7 different options available to him, just going, I don't know, go sideways, I guess.
Just an easy Sunday for him, wasn't it?
It was silly. I'm watching this, I'm like going, oh my gosh, this is tough to watch as a Hawks fan, if you were. So, yeah. But at the same time, as a Swans fan, it was delicious. So it was kind of fun to watch.
Well, the commentary team were saying it was like the Swans were playing against witches' hats. So maybe Ollie was just doing a few sprints up and down just to keep himself busy.
He was not even warming up those legs, I think.
Oh dear.
One of the things I loved, and just looking at the stats after the fact, look at the score involvements by the team. You had 9 score involvements by Parker, 8 score involvements for the following teammates: Mills, Papley, Florent, Hayward, Amati, McDonald, all with 8 scoring involvements, and then 7 out to Heaney, McInerney, Stevens, and Goulden, followed by 6 with Laddams and Warner. Like that is an enormous spread of players getting it into inside 50 and getting involvements, getting scoring going. That was, as you mentioned, a total balance act from the entire team going forward, making pressure on those backs.
Yeah, absolutely. And always looking out for players in better positions, right? It's such unselfish play, by everyone, which is stuff we love to see.
Yep, 100%. Look, there's always a little bit of bad. We got to always kind of set the coin up a bit. What did you see in the game that you will probably put in the more negative territory?
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. I think it's that 4-quarter effort, to try and avoid the old footy cliche. But if I watched that Collingwood game against Port Adelaide, and I don't know if anybody else saw it, but it was an absolute clinic on how to just keep the pressure on relentlessly for 4 quarters and just put your opposition in a spot where they just cannot get out and you give them nothing. And I feel like we let the Hawks in a bit, and they're not a very good side. So, the damage, I suppose, wasn't done. But if we do that to some of the better teams, which we're going to face in the next few weeks, I just sort of wonder about that consistency throughout the whole game. And it definitely went missing, I think, particularly in that 4th term. Did you see it like that?
I did. And I'm looking at, 13 behinds. I'm not suggesting that the game would have been a whole lot different if they kicked 10 of those, right? I think we still were quite dominant no matter what, even if they were lucky in kicking straight. But it does kind of lean into the fact that we really took the pedal off the metal entirely, went into a backline. Do we predict that was given as instructions from Horse at 3-quarter time? It seemed like it wasn't 1 or 2 players. It seemed like across the board, everyone kind of just went a step back.
It'd be hard to imagine that would be the advice, right? Because that sort of level of effort, across the game is not something I wouldn't think you can easily switch on and off. And for us to be playing against what we believe to be pretty much lesser, opposition, which won't feature in finals this year, to not be able to kind of retain that level throughout the whole game I do think that there are some question marks that'll, I suppose we can look into in the upcoming games to see whether or not that's going to be an issue, because it was last year too.
Yep.
If we recall, and it came back to bite us.
Also, last week against Gold Coast, one of the negative things we mentioned about the game was, apart from the fact all the things that we've said similar to today, everyone played very well across the board, every single position, but there was junk time goals, and it was just one of those bad looks. We're like, well, we need to definitely finish off those quarters fine if we're ahead and against teams that are not really factoring in, and if they're getting the instruction from above to be like, you know what, guys, take it back a notch, let's not get injured, fine. But if that's 2 weeks in a row, it kind of makes me feel like, is there something going on with the team in that they've actively doing it without the coach's instruction, or is it something that we're planning to do just to kind of keep us a bit fresh throughout the year? It's kind of hard to know without being
hard to know, but we might find out next week, hey?
That's right. We've got a big game.
Quite possible.
That's right. Well, look, one of the other things to kind of point out too is Ladham's game. So the hit outs to advantage, or just hit outs, just generally. You were mentioning a couple of stats there that were pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we lost the hit outs for the second week in a row. This time around it was 22 to 34. So that's pretty comprehensive. We're actually dead last in the competition so far for hit outs. Again, didn't hurt us necessarily due to the follow-up work and, the quality of our mids, but that may not hold up against superior opposition. It's hard to imagine the Melbourne midfield, for example, letting our guys just, sort of pick up the pieces.
You mean the best midfield in the game, arguably?
Yeah, possibly not, particularly if they're getting a very nice hit out to advantage from Brodie Grundy. So
that's right. Yeah, it's definitely something we've walked into this season worried about our ruck situation and wanting Ladhams to turn it on. The good lad year, we're hoping that really happens. But look, I don't know. He was up against a couple of new rucks, younger guys. It wasn't terrible, but he wasn't particularly fantastic either. So it is an interesting point. If we're coming last in hitouts in the competition after 2 weeks of playing pretty meager teams, albeit Gold Coast, Jared Witt's a good ruckman, it does pose some questions. So it's interesting. Of course, this is a podcast where we definitely want to be talking about the positivity, but we also want to kind of lay out some of the points that we see as important and something to factor into the thoughts for our games for next week anyway.
Absolutely. No one's perfect, even if you win by 80 plus points.
yeah, exactly. We got to talk them through. Yeah. All right. Look, favorite moments. What were yours there, Jules?
Yeah, I had a couple. I absolutely loved, but I think he loved it more, Paps' Specky.
Yes.
How good was that? Apparently,
I love it.
Apparently, he indicated to Chad Warner for Chad to block for him, but ended up sitting on his shoulders.
So when Chad didn't block, he's just like, well, bugger you, mate. I'm going to make you into a highlight reel, and just sat on him.
Yeah, climbed up on top. And Paps just looks so stoked with himself. I think he even said that he's never taken a specky in his life. So he was just absolutely pissing himself laughing. He missed the goal, obviously, because he just thought it was too funny. But no, that was quite a moment. The other one I had, which is often a fairly divisive, I suppose, moment.
It is divisive because I'm right here. Let's talk about it. Yep.
Sweet Caroline.
Yep.
Yeah. So Caroline Kennedy, the daughter of the late American president JFK, was in the stands, and Neil Diamond actually wrote that song for her.
I didn't know this.
Yes.
Wow.
So she was there probably thinking, oh, what an amazing tribute to me. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
So she was bopping along and singing, and it was just a really nice moment, I thought.
Wow, I didn't know that was a thing. So I take all of it back. I was about to rip into it because it bothers me so much, but I will 100%, and that's such an appropriate time to play that song. And I don't know if you noticed on the TV, but definitely live, they played it well. Like the umpires wanted to bounce the ball, and they just kept playing the song on and on and on and on. So that was something a little bit interesting. So okay, I take it back. I was about to smash it, but okay.
Yeah, no, a pretty random one, but no, it was a very sweet moment for Caroline. So, what about you, mate? Did you have any favourite moments?
I mean, I was at the game and I was a little bit nervous. It's one of those teams that you're like, oh, no, we should smash them, but you never know. Sometimes the Swans don't turn up to some of these games. And within, 5 seconds, Amadi's got the ball 40 meters in front from a fantastic Gordon clearance and kicks himself a goal. And I'm just like, okay, this was a great way to start the game. And I was there with my mate from America visiting, moving over here anyway with his family. And it was his first ever Swans game. He knows how much I love it. And to see him just like, that's good, right? I'm like, that's amazing. That's unbelievable. I'm like, got so up. They just like set up my day. And I was really excited about that. And that was perfect. The other part was that I want to pump up, like we mentioned about it. The buddy thing is always bringing up, but I just love the fact that we can spend a week not talking about buddy, or at least the AFL media will try to anyway, but there's so many more talking points to go with, and that made me particularly happy. And I think that's just a special moment for us Swans fans. Of course, AFL 360 will talk about it for 5 seconds, but for 5 seconds, they're not talking about buddy. Turns out they did anyway. But hey, we'll work
they did, but they also talked about Jumbo and Party. So that's a win. Yeah.
That's 50-50. That's a massive win for us. I love that. Well, let's get straight into the ABOB medal. So the ABOB medal is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal, where we give points out to the best players in each game. And then at 3-2 points, as you typically would. And at the end of the year, we send a $50 Coles voucher out to the winning player, and we work it out from there. So the 3-2-1 points go out to 3 points for Mills, 2 points for Gordon, and 1 point for Amati Party. So, Jules, what do you want to say about our 3 points to Captain Courageous Mills?
Oh, Callum Mills, he was back to his very best. I mean, not that he ever lowered his colours, but he was comprehensively the best player on the ground. As you mentioned, 28 disposals, 8 score involvements, 2 goals of his own. Captain Mills, the two-way mid, just absolutely blew it out of the park. He played on the wing a fair bit. Notice, which is, we're kind of used to seeing him everywhere, inside, back, but he just went wherever the team needed him to go, as he always does, and was absolutely sensational.
Yeah, he played like a defensive mid role, allowing McInerney and Dill to kind of come up a little bit more, but yeah, it just seemed like he had a good position and was everywhere and was supportive and also offensive, like. As you said, doing a Mills kind of game, which is being everywhere, wherever he is needed all the time, and just another effort. And I would like to put down that the bevy last week put him on notice for not getting points in the ABOB medal. So for the first time for a year or so, he had not been getting any points. He was on notice, and he came back. He heard the podcast, and he came back and he went, you know what, guys, I'm going to show you. And Mills, we're happy with the way you did, mate. So thank you for your effort.
Yeah, well done, Millsy. Plenty more votes coming your way, I'm sure.
Your $50 Coles voucher is quickly coming your way, my friend.
Awesome.
All right, 2 points to Errol Goulden. Played another incredible game. He's got the whole AFL world on notice. Jules, what can we say about Goulden?
Yeah, I thought Errol was stiff actually not to get a point from the bevy last week, in all honesty. So Errol was back with a vengeance too. 28 disposals, 7 score involvements. He just hard defensive effort from him, but also just knew when to go forward and made really, really good decisions. Absolutely, relentless work by Errol once again.
Yep, and again, his use with his kicks is unbelievable, paramount to our team. 19 kicks of his 28, 19 of his 28 disposals through kicks with a high efficiency with 487 meters gained, which is second on the ground. And with, as you mentioned, 7 score involvements. So I think the only thing that stopped him maybe from fighting for that 3 points is he didn't get on the scoreboard. But he was quick up there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He had a couple of opportunities too, so he can improve for next week.
That's right. Yeah. So again, Errol, you're on those, mate. Kick a couple. Yeah, no worries. And I guess this is kind of. It's hard for me to say. It's been 2 teams that aren't particularly good, and we played very well against them. But to see him play the Carlton game in the preseason in this phenomenal game, play very well last week, and as you mentioned, unlucky to get himself a point in the ABOB, and also to get himself 2 points this week. Like, he is playing another stellar
elite.
season.
He's elite.
Elite.
Yeah.
He's already elite. Third season's elite.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I struggle to remember a player this good so early in his career.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of the last player that honestly sees the game like he does as a young player. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's a sensation.
You kind of pinch yourself a little bit to just know that him and Braden are going to be around for a long time, and Logan. And anyway.
Thank you, Academy.
Thanks, Eddie, for making us go the Academy route. That's just that backfired on you, didn't it? Okay, so for the 1 point has gone out to Amati Party. Jules, you were big on the party. The Bevy crew were a bit all over the place. We could have gone for a different number of people, but it totally makes sense giving the money to Party.
Yeah, we were a little bit split because, look, when you have a demolition job like what we did, there are plenty of good players on the ground, and there were, and I think we're probably going to have a few special mentions. But in terms of Party, I mean, look, as you mentioned, he kicked that critical goal in the first few seconds and just set the tone for the whole match. He just seemed to be everywhere. Even though he only played the 3 quarters, he seized on all the opportunities and had plenty of score involvements as well. So not to mention his 4 through the big sticks. Mm-hmm. So pretty impressive from Party.
Yep, 4 score involvements, 4 goals in 3 quarters. And not only that, he was also good with his body, good in the contest. He threw himself out a couple of contests there, got his hands on the ball, put some pressure on. A couple of those extra, that extra effort that you want to see from a player on the field, not just scoring goals, but also getting it done across the board in defense as well.
Contributing everywhere he was. So, well done, Party.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the tank seems to be up there. He was running a lot more. One thing that we've kind of been a little bit critical of him, keeping his feet, again, something we've been a little bit critical of him. So, all these things that we've suggested to be worked on, it looks like that he's definitely gearing up. So really happy to see him come in with Buddy, albeit having to sit out a week by accident. But, it's AFL football. You take your chances when you can get them. So good on Party.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
What can we say about some of the others?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead with the Party.
I was just going to say about Party because Nick Noddy from the potty asked about the substitution with Party and whether or not that was to do with keeping him fresh for next week, which we think quite possibly it is. But John Longmire Horse in the press conference after the match mentioned that the intention was to only ever play him for 3 quarters, so everybody can breathe a sigh of relief, I suppose, if you're worried about Party's health. So he's coming back from a hamstring concern, so they were managing him, if they were able to do so from a substitute perspective. So just a small call out there.
Yeah, perfect. That's good to notice. Good to know because even I don't think I watched the presser. So even if I did, I've forgotten that. So that's really good. So it sounds like it was all in the plan to bring him off, albeit he was probably red hot and pumping to go, and they probably had to pull him off.
He probably would have been furious, but all for the good of the next few weeks. Yeah,
that's right. All for the good for the team. So Amati Party, there you go. The party's kicking off early in the season. We had a few notable players that we were all umming and ahhing about within the bevy to work out who gets that last point. Some of the other ones in mind were, of course, Logan with his 5 goals and plenty of touches and getting it done everywhere. We also had Oflo and Blakey playing that halfback role. Insanely offensive. I think Blakey had over 500 or 400 meters gain. Oflo with half of that, but Oflo was everywhere, jogging around, passing it around, being a distributor.
Yep.
Both those players were fantastic.
And both of them insanely accurate with their kicking. And kicking it a long way too. I love Steve-O's comment. The lizard was ruthless, cutting through lines off halfback.
Yeah.
It summed it up, hey? He was critical and unlucky probably to miss out on a vote, but they can't go to everyone.
That's it. There's only 3 sets of biscuits and there's a lot of big men. So it's hard to give them all, but we got to make those calls. So yeah, those players notable. And of course, Parker doing another Parker game.
Yeah.
Again, another week where we just assume he's going to be there and he is doing all this fantastic stuff. Did you see Fox Footy when they had he was mic'd up and he was calling shots around the ground as he's amongst the contested ball and trying to tackle blokes, giving orders around. It was superb.
Yeah, he seriously is a leader, that gentleman. I mean, not only, in terms of what he does, but what he says and how he motivates, those around him. We take him for granted, I think, a bit.
Yeah, we do.
27 disposals, kicked a goal and 9 score involvements, as well as all the leadership presence on the field. I mean, he's an absolute beauty.
Yeah. So we don't have any biscuits for those gents, but definitely want to call them out to say they were special. And we could talk about a number of other players. Dill had a good game. Juzzy had a good game. The whole backline had a great game.
We haven't even talked about Warner.
Warner had another decent game. Yeah. Papley and Heaney were everywhere. Hayward had
good too.
Everyone was good. So
yeah.
Struggle.
Yeah. Wish we could give out Coles vouchers to everyone, but
Coles
inflation
is only sponsoring us. Coles is not sponsoring us at all. Coles, the $50 Coles voucher goes out. All right. The post game where we talk about injuries, MRO, anything replacements wise. We walked away from this game, from my knowledge right now, with no injuries. Is that your understanding as well, Jules?
That is my understanding. No injuries and no reports.
Yep, which is great to hear. Also, it looked like Mill's hand that he had in a glove last week wasn't in a glove, and he looked to be getting around without a problem. So it didn't look like he was favouring anything.
Miracle. Happy with that.
Yep, we'll take it. So not a whole lot to say about that, really. But then as we lean into what's going to happen for next week, we've got ourselves a bit of a question mark. So we have the D's next week at the MCG on a Sunday afternoon game. Weird time slot for 2 heavyweights that expected to be in the top 4, 5, 6 for this year. So, but whatever, thanks AFL. Buddy comes back from suspension. What is your belief? How do you think we're going to use him? Does he come straight back onto the team?
Yeah, there's been so Buddy has made the media, of course, in the last couple of days, because that old argument's come back out. Are the Swans a better team without Buddy? And how could they ever drop Party or Jumbo Jet? And I don't think they will drop either Party or Jumbo Jet. It is more than likely to be Hayden and McLean, I think, who will miss out. Stiff, probably, because he had it was a modest game, but, not enough necessarily to lose his spot. But Lance comes straight back in. I mean, who would ever not select Buddy Franklin if available? Like, honestly.
Especially against the D's. We're all expecting, I'm definitely expecting to be top 1, 2, 3 teams of the year, depending on what happens with the injuries and whatnot, but they're too good. And Stephen May, we understand, probably comes back in. He had some calf tightness last week and he's expected to come back in from all accounts. So, Buddy's sparring partner there in Stephen May, the competition continues. I'm agreeing with you. I suggest that Buddy comes straight in. The only question that I have between Amadi and McLean is, did Amadi pull up well? Do we find out during the week that he does?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, can he play 4 quarters, or are we happy for him to play 3 with Matty Roberts coming in as well?
Well, and can he do relief ruck work, right? Which is the other question.
That's right. McLean got his ruck work in. I think he had 12 or so ruck contests and won 5 of them. So perfectly fine, 25% or so, whatever it ended up being. So
so there will be a gap there. We know that Party can ruck and hope that he would be able to do that. But I think that would be, a structural question for sure in weighing up who they're going to pick. Was it Stephen May in the qualifying final last year where Buddy didn't shake his hand or something? Didn't he snub him?
I don't remember that part of it, actually. I was at the game, but I didn't see the handshake. But that wouldn't have surprised me because they start playing mind games between each other straight away.
They're not mates, I don't think.
No, they're not mates. They're both like polar opposites. You know what? I'm going to say the opposite thing. They seem like similar characters in some ways in the competitiveness on the ground, and also kind of take it with a bit of tongue in cheek, but they're intensely competitive and both at the height of their game in their own ways, right? So, fascinating matchup.
It'll be mouth-watering if Stephen May is able to play. I mean, look, we kind of hope that he doesn't, from a matchup point of view, but, for a football fan, watching those two go at it, it's pretty special.
It's pretty fun. We've got a couple of other notable names in the team that are going to be out. You've got Cozzy Pickett, who's still sitting out suspension because of that absolutely feet-leaving headbutt into Bailey Smith that he should have sit out at least 3-4, but nonetheless, he's sitting out this week for his last time off. I don't know. Do we say, and of course, I almost forgot about their captain, Max Gawn.
Max is gone.
He's medial, I understand. So probably 4 to 6 weeks out from my understanding.
Yeah, which I think was a bit of a relief. That looked pretty awful at the time, and he was, seemed to be pretty upset, as you can imagine. But 4 to 6 weeks is certainly not the worst case scenario for him, but it's a good one for us because he is gone this week.
Yeah.
So
Gaundy is down to just Grundy at the moment, which is a kind of a good thing for them, given that they wanted to always have the backup, but now they're straight into the backup in round 3 against some pretty good competition in the Swans, you'd imagine. So, look, this is going to be another big test for Laddams, right? So, like, he's up against Grundy, who is
all Australian ruckman,
elite ruckman, no question about it. He's one of the best that is out there. Even Bartel, I heard the other day mentioning that in the competition at the moment, there's elite ruckman, then there's daylight, and then you've got what he says. He said cannon fodder. And I'm not too far off from agreeing with him. I suggest it's about right. Grundy is absolutely in the elite category, and our Laddams gentleman is at the moment anyway, without us having to see more, a little bit cannon fodder.
Well, it's this is something that I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes, because I think we've gotten away with a bit in the last couple of weeks. Yeah.
I want to say right now, I believe in the good lad. I believe he's going to come good. I genuinely do. I think his head's screwed on well. He's got the commitment. He wants to be there. He wants to be the best he can. He might surprise us, and I genuinely think that he will. But it's going to be a tough game for him. That's all I'm saying. And it's going to have to be his best is going to have to be out there in order to compete with Grundy, because Grundy's done it consistently for some time now. With some of the best. So let's see where he is. The D's generally are a bit of a funny matchup against us, I guess. They've got good spots everywhere. But the last 2 games that they played, the first round game was against the Bulldogs, where they won by a convincing 50 points. In hindsight, it doesn't look so strong. Now that we've seen the Bulldogs play their second game, they didn't play so well. They were a bit all over the shop. And last week, they were beaten by the Lions by only 11 points in that weird game where the lights decided to turn off. But again, they were down by a lot more at 3/4 time, and they were, from my image of it, convincingly beaten. Having said that, that could have all been around the structure with Gawn going out and everything, and then them not knowing where to settle. But it was a pretty clear loss there. So what do you think, Jules? I'm not big in predictions, but it's up to you.
Well, we've won our last 2 games against them, right, at the MCG.
That's right.
Not by massive margins, but we've got the wood over them. And it's back to the MCG for us, which, you know, if there's going to be a hangover, it might be felt there. I don't know.
Oh no! Right in the head. Okay, well, you've heard it here first. If we lose this game, and touch wood, we don't. I believe in our lads and the lad, but that will be a talking point, right? We can almost imagine this right off the bat.
Back to the scene of the crime.
Back to the scene of the crime.
Yeah. Yes.
I remember that scene. I was in the very, very last row. I barely saw anything.
We all remember that scene.
I felt it all.
We're ready to rewrite new memories at the MCG.
Yeah, for
next
sure,
Sunday.
For sure.
Yeah. So look, I'm not massive on predictions either, and it's just so hard in the first few rounds. You know, it's been a tipster's nightmare, as plenty have called it so far. we are not favourites by the looks of things, so Melbourne are going in as expected to win. But I think we match up reasonably well against the Ds, and we've got no reason to be afraid, in my mind.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I'm quite surprised about how much the bookies are favouring Melbourne. I think it's like $2 something to $1.80 or so. Like, it's somewhat quite a bit convincing, and I am surprised by that, given that the way we've played, given we've not played super competition, but the team in itself seems to be rolling perfectly fine. We're getting Buddy back. It surprises me. I don't know. Did the bookies know something that we don't know? I don't know. They typically do, right? So
yeah, well, typically, or we're just underrated, maybe.
Yep.
I don't know. Or people are not convinced about our, 2-0 start.
Yep.
So time will tell, and I'm happy to go in as the underdog. That suits me fine.
On the win, if we get it, the talking point will be the Academy. How do we take it away from the Swans? A series.
The ramifications.
A series narrated by Eddie, and that's going to be amazing.
Yep, they will come knocking, that's for sure. But let them.
Yep. Let them come knocking. Well, look, that's about the game for next week as well. We've got a few last-minute things. One thing I'll quickly point out that just came up today in Swans media was there was a gentleman that was heading into the game at the SCG in through to the red zone section, so like the Bradman stand, Noble stand section. And because they share the same area as the SCG Trust, and the Swans fans are expected to wear the same attire or the same categorization of attire that the Swans Trust do, which is silly because we're not sitting in the Trust section, you're sitting in another stand. But this gentleman went into the game with his wife and his 2 kids, an 8-month-old, I think, and a 6-year-old, and they were knocked back at the gate because the wife had a little rip in the jeans, which is the style at the time. Now, this got the absolute ire of everyone on Twitter. Everyone was livid. Like, how can you kick back a bunch of people from watching a game? And I frankly think the SCG Trust is a waste of time, and they should have been released a long time ago, and they shouldn't have any involvement outside of their little building over there. But nonetheless, the Swans apparently made it all up to him. The 6-year-old is going to be at training and meeting the players, and they've made an apology, and everything's kind of tidy from now. So that's a bit of a bad story and ended up being a good story. And from all accounts, that gentleman and his family are very thankful for the way the Swans addressed it, albeit they had some pretty ordinary experience with the Sydney Trust at the time. So that's one thing there. Have you had any experience being kicked out of or not been let in by the SCG members? I have, and I guess that's why I'm so mad about it.
I haven't. I don't know how I haven't, to be honest with you, with some of the kit that I rock up in. But yeah, they are. They've got it. They've got a bit of hoity-toity about them, don't they? It seems a bit unnecessary as well. I mean, I don't know exactly what this lady was wearing, but
I saw it. It's just a regular pair of jeans with a tiny rip on it. Like,
I mean,
nothing.
That's fashion. It could be a $400 pair of jeans with a rip in it. So,
right.
you've got to let common sense prevail, I think, these days. And it just sounds like a security guard of some description maybe just got a bit ahead of themselves and probably just took it a bit too far, which is a shame. But well done the Swans for getting on board with some excellent customer service and leaving these fans happy.
Yep. And if you want to know anything about the SCG Trust, Alan Jones is still on the board. So let's just put that in perspective.
Enough said.
Right? Enough said. Now, of course, one thing we definitely want to talk about is how the number 25 was celebrated this week. And there were some Swans fans out there that weren't sure of the context for number 25 being out there in the stands, for the memories there, for the jersey being left on the bench there. And it's all related to the great Barry Round, who was the Sydney Swans' inaugural captain when they moved from South Melbourne up to Sydney back in 1982. He unfortunately passed away in December, and this was a celebration for him and everything that he'd done for the game and for the Swans. So for everyone, number 25, the great Barry Round, has had an incredible career and something we should celebrate, including being the captain for the Swans between 1980 and 1984, as I mentioned, including the inaugural season moving up here to Sydney. He was also the best and fairest in 1979 and 1981 for the Swans. He won a Brownlow in 1981 and was part of the Swans team of the century. What an incredible career for Barry Round. He was a big man at 6'4" and 108 kilos in his time. And as I mentioned, unfortunately passed away at the age of 72, playing 328 games all up, with 193 of those games with the Swans, and comes in 40th of all time of most games played for the VFL AFL, and incredibly and fittingly also inducted into the AFL Hall of Fame. A beautiful moment, I guess, and well done by the Swans to give it such a class act with having the jersey there as they sang the song, revering and fitting, I felt. Jules, how did you see it on your side?
Yeah, it was a poignant and fitting tribute to Barry for our first home game of the year. This club does have a really proud history, and it's nice to see this current stock of players acknowledging what Barry did for this club that we all love so very much. By all accounts and purposes, he was absolutely critical in the move to Sydney and getting the players on board in that. And our best clubman medal is named after Barry Round.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, yeah, it was a beautiful tribute, and your words just now, I think, have summed that up, to perfection. And it was just, it was a very hard loss, but really beautiful way of celebrating him and his contribution to the club.
That's right. The Bevy sends out all of our love to the Round family and the Swans community as a whole. It does leave a big hole, but it really is, I guess, a moment to reflect on the sacrifices and effort that had to come in for Sydney to get a team. And there's no doubt that it would have been hard for Barry at the time. And he just seemed like he did it in his stride and was a perfect man along the way. So thank you to Barry Hall, and all the best to his entire family from the Bevy. Any more last minute things, Jules, before we wrap up?
Not Swans related, but just a good sort of football story. Ben Cousins took the footy field on the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many people would have caught that. It was a curtain raiser for the Eagles game, but just seeing Ben, knowing everything that he's been through, looking fit and happy, and he himself said it was magic to have a kick on Optus Stadium. Just a feel good story, I guess, for all of us, and redemption and all those things. So good on you, Ben. Hopefully you can continue to improve, and we'll see you on the footy field more often.
Yeah. Say what you want to say about Ben Cousins, but addiction is a real problem. And to see him getting back at it again is, I think, special for him for sure. One thing that I wanted to raise is that we actually bumped into Gil McLachlan in the post-game celebrations at the pub. So I managed to put a microphone in front of him, and he was very, very nice to give me the 60-odd seconds when he was sitting there having a beer by himself. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. The little chat is there. I just threw a couple of random questions at him, and he was nice enough to deal with me yelling at him, basically.
It was awesome. And I was thinking to myself, geez, that man is well media trained.
Absolutely.
He just knew exactly. Yeah.
I wasn't going to shake him
too.
Yeah. I did say that I wasn't going to lean into too many hard questions at the time. So I think that's the only reason I got the if I went in there going, why isn't Tassie getting another team? There's no way he would have let me get near him. And so I had to play my cards right to get the time with him. But he was very nice, and he is very tall. So let's just point that out. That brings us to the end of this episode, round 2 of the 2023 season. Thank you all very much for listening in. Otherwise, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and make sure you listen to us where all the good podcasts are held. But until then, up the Bloods,
and
can you Swannies?